How you doing, YouTube? Matt, Master Beer Reviews, back with yet another review. A little bit of collaboration time in the form of Plan B Brewing and Kent Falls Brewing. It's their best Spuds. Wah, wah. Yeah, I have not had this before. I picked this beer up when I was at Plan B. I went up there about a month ago with the missus. Stopped by, had a grand old time, came back with a couple bottles. This was one of them. Here we go. Best Spuds. New York Wild Ale brewed with potatoes. Aged in red wine barrels. There is no ABV on here, but I did look it up. It's 6.5%. I was just curious, so a little bit of research. Like I said, it is a collab with Kent Falls, and it says here, boil them, mash them, stick them in a brew. Derek Dellinger is the beer-flavored fermented man of Kent Falls and one of our best Spuds. Hence the name. Wah, wah. Together we brewed this wild ale with Poughkeepsie-grown potatoes. It just might be the one beer to rule them all. Long aged and laid down. Drink it now, drink it later. Though keep in mind, one does not simply walk into more beer. The wild ale is never late, nor is it early. It arrives precisely when it means to. Whenever you do, please recycle. Cast it back into the fiery chasm from when it came. Someone has a hard on for the not Game of Thrones. Jesus, sorry. What's the other one? The Hobbity things. Yeah, Lord of the Rings. It's called. But yeah, Leewise is cool. It's got that texture thing I love so much. And it's got potatoes on it. I'm Irish. What do you want? You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to dig it. So we'll see what's what. I honestly can't remember the last time. No, let me rewind that. I don't remember ever having potato in beer. So we'll see what it does. I mean, I don't imagine potato really providing much to a beer other than, let's say, like a pumpkin does, those kind of starchy kind of mouthfeels. I assume that's kind of where this beer might kind of set itself apart, especially from the potato edition. Red wine barrels and a 6.5% beer, so it might get a little bit red, might get a little bit almost like savory maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of curious about it. Let's do it. Slide that in the frame. There you go. So what do we got here? Very pretty, almost like flurry, snow globy, like carbonation. Yeller, not even yellow, it's yeller, kind of washed out yellow, a little bit of haze to her, nice beautiful carbonation, pinky finger head. Yeah, she looks like a wild ale, but a little bit lighter than what you expect. A little bit washed out, not very dense, almost like slightly watered down, for the lack of a better word. Let's get a nose. Well, you definitely get those red wine barrels in there. Whew. And oddly enough, I smell bologna. That's legit. I smell like a smoked character in there. I smell like, I don't know if they use like a smoked malt, or if that's just kind of up. Actually, it's more like Polish sausage kielbasi. Maybe I'm just thinking of potatoes and kielbasi. I don't know, but I'm getting a smoked kind of character from it. But it's like a fatty smokiness. It's not like a charry, dark, rich kind of smokiness. It's like kind of the fattiness you would get from like kielbasi, hot dogs, bologna, that kind of smokiness to it. There's like almost a lard kind of vibe to it. The red wine barrel comes through. It's big and vinous. It's meaty. It's rich, but it's not over the top. There's definitely an acidity to it, tartness to it, especially in the nose. But yeah, it smells like red wine, beer funk, and smoked bologna. Don't know where I'm getting that bologna part from, but we're drinking it. Cheers. There's a starchy component to it. There is. I feel like it's not gritty. There's like this creaminess to it. Same thing kind of like I assumed it might provide, like the same way you get from your squash-based beers, your pumpkin beers, your butternut squash beers, those kind of things. There is this kind of soft creaminess to it. And it's kind of weird to have in a washed out kind of clear beer like this to get that chronic creamy mouthfeel. It's like cream ale bumped up kind of vibe that you're getting in your brain, because especially because of how the beer looks. I kind of dig it. It's cool. The red wine barrel really floats around the edges of your palate. It's kind of like an arch across the top of the roof of my mouth. And it's rich, and it's tart, and it's vinous. But it's not over the top. For you're talking about a 6.5% lighter beer, talking about red wine barrels, my first knee-jerk reaction is going to be, oh, hopefully the barrel doesn't overtake the beer. you get heaping helpings of it. You get that nice red wine there. I'm getting a nice kind of rich kind of vanilla component from it, but it doesn't overpower the beer. But the beer's not that big of a beer to begin with. You get a nice tartness from the beer itself too. You get a soft little graininess to it. I couldn't really tell you what it would be, whether it be wheat or Pilsner malt or whatever the hell it is. But the beer is there. So while the red wine barrel is a little bit bigger, it doesn't overpower the beer. But you still get that nice creaminess, or I shouldn't say you definitely get this kind of nice creamy kind of starch component from the actual potatoes. It's a cool beer. There's a lot of soft, small components floating around here, and these are the kind of beers that really kind of make me giddy in more of a kind of technical aspect, because I know it's so easy to let any of these bits and pieces overpower the other. You know, the beer could be too big for the barrel or too big for the potatoes, and vice versa, all around the board on all three components, but none of it kind of gets there. They all are distinct. They're all individual. They're all their own bits and pieces of personality, but they kind of work together. It's kind of like that weird reverse kind of beer. And by that I mean, more times than not, when you have individual components, they stick out individually as opposed to being kind of cohesive. I hesitate to use that categorization because it says cohesive, but when they're stark as they are, and again, small beer use stark as a kind of whatever you want to call it, but that's a bad thing. Usually when they're individual components and you're like, okay, each bit and piece is individual. In this beer, they are very individual. They work together, they're cohesive, but they are very, very individual. You get that texture from the potato, you get that red wine barrel, you get the beer itself, the yeast component, the soul of the beer, the yeast portion of the beer is all distinct and individual and very distinct, but it's a good thing as opposed to being a negative thing a lot of times when it comes to a lot of these beers with a lot of bits and pieces floating around in them. And I dig it. Still cohesive and nice. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be a good beer. So that's a long way of saying I kind of like it. It's tart enough to kind of get me excited, but not acidic enough to kind of get me given all the heartburn and getting all kind of annoyed at it. The potato actually shows up in the beer, which I keep laughing at every time I bring it up, but it's kind of cool because it's a unique thing I've never dealt with before. And the red wine barrel shows in a very pretty, very meaningful way that doesn't overpower the beer. It's technically fucking fantastic, and that in of itself is just a beautiful thing. Yeah, I dig this beer. This is really fun. Let's talk about it. Is it one of the better wild ales? For lack of categorization, I guess that's where they put it too. But yeah, it's yeah, it is. It is. It's one of the more funner. There you go. Funner. You know, wild beers that I've had in a while. The potato aspect kind of plucks at my heartstrings, being the old Irish boy that I am. But take that aside, I think it's still a really fun beer. Value and availability: $18 for a 750. Mixed fermentation, wine barrels. I'm not gonna get angry at that. You know what I mean? And you know, the ABV always makes me want to go a little bit cheaper, but with the components involved, yeah, I'm not gonna get angry at it. I'm not gonna enjoy it, but I'm not gonna get angry at it. And leave you with, if you like what, will you like this? If you like fun beers, if you like unique beers, thoughtful beers, pretty beers, all those words that are not overt, you know, like 2x4 to the face, like screaming your face, all kinds of faces. If you like beers to be thoughtful and you want to think about them as opposed to the beer telling you and screaming at you what you should think in a good way, worth picking up. There you go. Another review in the books. Down there if you want to talk about it. Massive Beers if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. Beer Massive if you want to check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. We're enjoying a nice little potato-based beer right now. Hope we'll see you next time. Cheers.